Hey YouTube, Rogue3 here, back with a Runick Rose Dragon combo tutorial for you guys. I figured the easiest way to show off the deck would be to just do some test hands, because it's not a super linear deck in the traditional sense. It's got like stepping stones that you go through along the way, like, oh, this is where I summon my Rose Maiden, this is where I summon into my Crystal Wing, but not necessarily the same way of getting to all of those with different hands. So I figured this is probably the easiest way to show it off. So yeah, I've been super excited to show this off to you guys. So let's just hop into the first hand. So let's see what we've got to work with. We have 5 Runicks, which is not a bad hand. At least we have one that we can just activate straight up. So we can use one. I'll just show it. We'll go Smithing Storm. I usually like to start with the ones that are typically called the worst Runicks, just so I know which ones I have and haven't activated. I can just say, oh, we've activated these couple bad ones. So yeah, Smithing Storm into Hugin. Hugin effect, discard, I'd say the Golden Droplet to search for air. Fountain. Fountain to hand. Give it a good shuffle because we'll be drawing now. Activate our Fountain. And then Slumber, target Hugin. So that lets us draw 3 off of our Fountain. So this still has a solid potential of being a full combo hand. So draw 3 off of our Fountain. And we get not a Rose Dragon, but we did get Fountain. So we can still kind of mess around. We'll see. This is kind of going really hard into trying to get a tuner. But we can tip to grab, let's see, because we used Slumber. We didn't use Golden Droplets, so we could activate Golden Droplets straight up. And I think we might have to do that just to maximize our odds, because then we'll get to draw 2 again off of our Fontaine. So yeah, let's Golden Droplet. Opponent draws a card, banish 4. Doesn't feel good to do, but we can then draw 2 off of the new Fountain, and we draw into our Rose Dragon. Yes, we do. So this was a decent way to show that, hey, even if you draw just a bunch of Runicks, you can still get to your Rose Dragon stuff. So we'll see how this goes. We will normal summon Rose Dragon, Synchro 5, into, I think with this hand, we can afford to go into a Hyper Librarian first, which is always nice. So then we will Red Rose Dragon effect to special summon into our Rox Rose Dragon. Rox Rose on summon can search us our Basil Rose Shoot. Just gotta, it's way up towards the top. It always is. Yep. Then we can use one of our Runicks. I'll just go Freezing Curses to special summon, I think at this point, just another Hugin. And then we can synchro these into our Garden Rose Maiden. Rose Maiden can grab us a Black Garden, and Hyper Librarian can draw us a card. At this point, they haven't ashed us, so we can just have this be Chainlink 2, this Chainlink 1, so that we just don't draw the Black Garden. So let's go in and find that. And then our Librarian can draw a card. Another Runick we haven't activated, which is always a good thing to see. So then we have Basil Rose Shoot, summon out a Rose Dragon. Then we can synchro into a Crystal Wing here, which is nice. So now we've got a monster negate up, so now if they haven't nibbed at this point, we now have protection from that. But yeah, then that gets another Hyper Librarian draw into Dispelling, another Runick we haven't played. That is super, super nice. Then I think at this point is when we activate our Black Garden. Black Garden is going to half our monster's attack and give our opponents tokens, but then it will be an extender for us in the long run. So we will use our Rose Maiden in the graveyard, banish itself, to special summon our Red Rose out of the graveyard. Black Garden will half its attack and give our opponent a token. We will then use Dispelling to special summon ourselves a Jerry. Jerry can grab our fountain out of our graveyard, and then Black Garden will half it and give a token. And now we can use our Black Garden's effect to blow up itself and all of the plants on the field. So just the 2 tokens, and they each have 800 attack. And then Black Garden summons a monster from the graveyard with the total attack. So 2 8s makes a 16, and that is our Rocks Rose Dragon. So then from there we can synchro our Red Rose and our Jerry into an Ancient Fairy Dragon. That will trigger a Librarian again to draw a card. Alright, some follow-up. That's always nice. Might as well throw our fountain out here. Actually, with the AFD, we can special summon our Red Rose. Yeah, we'll summon Red Rose. I debated summoning a Mourner just because we have 2 of them, but it doesn't hurt to have a Mourner for on our next turn when we get around to it, in case they happen to like IP and SP or something. So we special summon the Red Rose, synchro summon into a Bestial Dispotter, which will trigger a Librarian again to draw a card into a Slumber. We have activated that, so that's fine. That's just another way to trigger a fountain on our opponent's turn. Then I believe all we've got left is to special summon with our Dispotter our Garden Rose Maiden. Use our Destruction to special summon a Jerry. That will trigger the fountain and trigger the Jerry. Jerry grab the fountain out of our graveyard, and fountain put back 3 Runicks to draw 3 cards. Let's see what we get. Ooh, Effect Veiler, and a couple that we have already. That is all good. So now we can just synchro these 2 into an FA Dawn Dragster, and that will trigger our Librarian again, one last time, into a tip, of course. And then, last things last, we will summon, with our 2 5s, a DD Marksman King Tell into a Machinex. So, with this, we have Dawn Dragster for a Spell Trap negate, Dispotter for a monster negate, Crystal Wing for a monster negate, Machinex for 2 steals, and, we just have a casual 9 cards in hand, which includes a bunch of Runicks, multiple hand traps, and a backup fountain. Just an absolutely insane show. And that was not a super complicated combo. Well, yes, kind of complicated, but fairly average for what the deck does. This is like our big bad board that we make. This is about as good as we can do, but that just shows that any old hand can do it, because that was not the ideal hand to start, just a whole ton of Runicks and then had to use double fountain draws to get in there. But that was still pretty good, and hey, we've got a million cards in hand now. So that's kind of the basics on how the deck runs, is just do that, just draw as many Runicks as you can using your Hyper Librarian and your fountains. So yeah, then I'll kind of show what the basic ideas are, just to give a general basis on how you go through the combos, just so you got a general idea on how it usually goes. So for the most part, as long as you've got enough Runicks in hand, you can start with Librarian, enough Runicks and enough tuners. Because if you open Red Rose, you're all good. You go with Librarian. If you open Rocks Rose, you might want another tuner in hand, just to be sure that you've got enough extension to not run out of tuners, because then you've just got a Librarian chilling there. But for the most part, you do like to go Librarian first. Once you get your Librarian, the next one is usually Rose Maiden. Rose Maiden then just grabs your Black Garden for another extender, like I showed. And then Librarian just keeps drawing you cards. Yeah, then after that, it's usually Rose Maiden into a Crystal Wing. Then play your Black Garden. Rose Maiden, bring back Tuner. Runick, summon Jerry. And that's your 2 summons. Because it's usually right after Crystal Wing is when you play your Black Garden. Just as a rule of thumb. If you've got enough extenders to get to that point, that's usually when you do it. Because then after that, you Rose Maiden, bring back a Tuner, Runick, summon a Jerry, and then that's 2 times, so you can blow up Garden and the 2 tokens to bring out your Rocks Rose. It is super nice that Black Garden happens to work out the way it does. I have had some annoying situations where I'm running out of tuners and you can play it, not summon anything, and just blow up Rose Maiden to bring back Rocks Rose. So it gets rid of one of your non-tuners, but it can get you another tuner. So that is another niche thing that is nice with Black Garden, is that it can just like get you tuners or non-tuners. Again, like if you wanted another Crystal Wing and you have enough tuner access, you can Black Garden and bring back Rose Maiden for another 5 non-tuner. So that's another thing you can do. But yeah, generally in this order, next you go into the AFD with the Jury and the tuner. AFD often will special summon a monster. If you don't have a monster to summon off of AFD, you usually don't end with the Dragster, which is usually fine. But Dragster is nice for some end boards. So it is occasionally a decent idea to end up with a Dragster to have the rest of it a little lower if you're really playing against the back row deck. But yeah, then you just AFD up into Dispotter. And the fact that Dispotter can just bring back your Rose Maiden after you banish it to extend is just so nice. And then the fact that these are both 5s, so you can just go into a rank 5. I'm playing the DDs, but you can play anything. I know there's a Chronomaly rank 5 that's a monster negate. But yeah, that's the general idea of your line. And that is obviously flexible depending on whatever hands you get, but it's generally, if you can librarian, you librarian. Otherwise, you always go next into Rose Maiden, Crystal Wing, AFD, Dispotter, and then Dragster usually. But yeah. And then the only other things are that occasionally you'll have, you'll want to play an extra Runick for an end piece just to draw extra off a fountain. So you get your Sleipnir for that, just to stick on the board and be sort of SP, not really, but kind of. And yeah, the depending on if you don't draw quite enough Runicks, you can just make double Crystal Wing. That is something you can do pretty simply. But yeah, that's sort of all I wanted to show. I went through figured I'd go through a test hand, show off how crazy it can go, and then show kind of these stepping stones for you guys. So yeah, that is all I've really got to show for you guys. Again, this deck is super, super fun. Totally suggest playing with it. Totally mess around with some ratios and see if you can add in a couple more tuners. I'd love to play more tuners. I just don't know what to add with the Rose Dragons. I've debated playing some Revolution Synchrons because those could go pretty crazy in here. But yeah, it's been super fun playing this. Totally go play it yourself. And with that, this is Rogue Tier, signing out.